Results in Michigan. What are you hearing, Michael?
Yeah, it's very interesting right now that a number of the folks that I've been talking to there in Michigan, Republicans are looking a little bit, how should we say, skeptical of holding Michigan for Trump right now, looking at some of the numbers that have been coming in. I know as we still have big centers like Detroit that are going to land, but the reality on the ground there, they have a lot of hope in that they look like they will flip the House to the Republicans, but may give some ground to Trump. They're still looking through some of the numbers, but it's a little bit up in the air for the Trump hold on Michigan. So
we now have an NBC News call in the first one, Joy. North Carolina called for Donald Trump.
Yeah, and so it was, it's a state that I think Democrats definitely were reaching for. There was a lot of work to try to turn out the college campuses, which were really thick and really packed, and try to turn out the suburbs. And I think there was a lot of hope because of just the insanity, to say fairly, of the person who's running for governor in that state. And I thought that, defeating him would also carry Harris in. But in the end, if they didn't make their numbers and essentially exceed the numbers that...
This was the other stupid punditry, okay, that they were talking about. That was going to be a reverse ballot effect. That actually somebody running for governor is going to drag Donald Trump down. Absolutely, absolutely stupid political insight, folks. Stupid. It doesn't work from bottom up. It works from top down. If the top of the ticket isn't strong, the coattails aren't going to bring the rest of them along. Boy, is Joey Reid an idiot ding-dong.
That Joe Biden had in the suburbs. And I think we have to be blunt about why. Black voters came through for Kamala Harris.
No, they didn't.
White women voters did not. That message obviously was
white women
to get enough white women to vote for Vice President Harris, a fellow woman. This will be the second opportunity that white women in this country have to change the way that they interact with the patriarchy. And, God bless Shannon Watts, who's tried to have that conversation. But if people aren't receptive to it, and if people vote more, party line or more on race than on gender and on protection.
This right here, folks, the face, race traitor, race hater, und race baiter.
Their gender, there's really not much more that you can do but tell people what the risks are and leave it to them to do the right thing.
Steph, people didn't have Montana Senate race. I think if, Democrats, obviously their pie in the sky view of these Senate races was that like Florida was within reach against Rick Scott with Debbie Newcastle-Powell, and maybe Texas was within reach with Ted Cruz versus Colin Allred. Now I think that we're down to figuring out what the Republican margin is likely to be, honestly.
Yes, and one of the
for the Harris campaign to offer or do. They delivered a very strong economy, and they put a plan
No, they didn't.
going forward. And what Donald Trump has offered is only going to worsen.
Again, another liar. Another liar. Everything coming out of Stephanie Ruhle's mouth, lies. But yet they continue to pay her millions and millions of dollars to spin her bullshit about how the economy was just so great. And if you're not experiencing that economy, you know what? You're a racist and a bigot. Just because, you can't afford groceries, you're imagining it. You're imagining your dollars. You're imagining you don't have any money in the bank. You got lots of money in your bank account, you dumb, stupid morons that live in flyover country. You got lots of money. You just don't know where it is. You can't, you can't count. Oh, you can't buy groceries? Yes, you can. You're just delusional. That's what's happened. That's a gaslighting coming out of this pundit.
The economy.
And also so I was fighting Claire McCaskill about 2 hours ago, but what I'm hearing again, as Steve Kornacki just told us, the big board, there were a number of votes, absentee ballots that came in this latest batch, lots from Philadelphia County. The lead that needs to be insurmounted is not the gap may not be insurmountable.
It is.
But it may be. Mountable. But they're cautiously optimistic. Now, there's still additional absentee ballots out there. I don't know exactly how many are left out, but I can tell you, I personally don't think that there are enough. And that means if there were not enough, I want to be honest with people, if there are not enough absentee ballots out there to make up the gap that currently exists for the Harris-Walz campaign, the vice president will not win Pennsylvania. And if she...
Oh my goodness. That was politically punditry, right? That's what they're paying these people millions of dollars to do. Hey, guess what? If there's not enough votes left in the absentee ballots to fill that gap, she's not going to win. Wow, Simone. If you didn't tell me that, I don't know what I would be doing, on the evening of the vote. I mean, if somebody didn't explain that to me, I would be thinking that if there's not enough votes out there, that there's still a possibility of victory. But you cleared that up for me and millions of people. Thank you so much, Simone, for letting us know that fact.
Does not win Pennsylvania, Donald Trump then hits 270. Now, Pennsylvania people are saying Allegheny County, that's Pittsburgh, right? Lehigh Valley,
Right.
the Puerto Rican vote, there is still a chance. And then some of these suburbs in the collar counties outside of Philadelphia. But the numbers, the margins, because this is an election about the margins.
Yeah.
The margins have not been large enough in the state thus far. But again, there's still some votes out there. It's not over until
We are we are still in it. We've been talking.
No, you're not in
Michigan
it.
and Wisconsin.
You're done.
And looking at those two states.
What started out as a hopeful sense that maybe we could knock off Ted Cruz and maybe the independent candidate in Nebraska, while not caucusing with Democrats, would deny the Republicans a seat. Now we're looking at whether or not I think the Republicans end up with 51, 52, 53, or 54 seats. And why is that so important? Well, one reason it's so important is
Now
because
she tells
it
us.
probably means if this all happens, this is very depressing. I'm sorry to do this to everyone, but it means maybe the worst instincts of Donald Trump is to who he would appoint to the cabinet.
Yeah.
Because there wouldn't be enough people that would say no.
I have to interrupt my own train of thought to bring you a call. For the second time this evening, NBC News is able to make a projection in a battleground state. NBC News now projects that in the battleground state of Georgia in the presidential race, Donald Trump has prevailed in the presidential race in Georgia.
2 down.
So again, of our
6 to
swing
go.
states, we've got 2 called thus far in Georgia and in North Carolina per NBC News. That puts the electoral map at Donald Trump with 246 electoral votes and Kamala Harris at 189 electoral votes. To make, NBC News can project at this hour, and this is a big one, that the Republican Party will control the United States Senate. Now, what tipped
That's
this
right.
over, we have eyes on Howard University right now. We can tell you that Vice President Harris is not expected to speak tonight, but we are seeing quite a crowd there, and we are.
I do know that there was a lot of hand-wringing and consternation in her camp about when she should leave, about when she should start to head here. And her victory party, which was in another part of town, at what point they turned off the TV set and just piped up the music because the room was starting to get increasingly somber. So a lot of people here, I haven't had a chance to talk to people who expressed disappointment. There really is still a lot of people who are holding on to hope, trying hard to hold on to hope. But the
HOPEIUM.
numbers, it's hard to do that in the face of a map that really looks like it's presenting a very steep challenge. And a country that at this point is still very divided.
And to be clear, Michelle, NBC News has called 2 of the 7 swing states. They have called Georgia and North Carolina for Donald Trump. They've also called Senate control for the Republican Party. 5 swing states remain to be called. But as you say, the internal map, which we have been following with Steve Kornacki, the wins in Georgia and North Carolina have created the mood that you're describing. The last thing that we have reportable from the Harris campaign, but Trump declares victory, all these things that everybody gamed out. Now, while we're just waiting for the blue wall states to come in and watching the math, sending people home is also like asking people to conserve their emotional energy. And
It's also asking him to concede. But you're not going to get honest reporting from, Rachel, Mark Cuban, Maddow. And they're both the same people. So I wasn't exactly sure if that was Mark Cuban there or if that was actually Rachel Maddow, identical twins. Not really sure.
It's not possible. I mean, I think there's no other way to describe how people are feeling leaving that venue and people in the campaign than deflated in this moment. Yes, all of the other states have not been called. But what they went to that venue tonight hoping to see and witness was a historic election of Kamala Harris to the presidency, was the end of the Trump era as they knew it. And so we don't know the outcome yet, but that is
Yes,
not
we
what
do.
they are receiving. And they are being told to go home
Because
and
they're
wait till
losers.
tomorrow.
Losers.
It's a hard thing to hear people who have worked
Leave.
across the country because they believed in Joe Biden, and then they're like, we're here for Kamala Harris. We believe in this. We're fighting for democracy. We're fighting for abortion rights. All
Joy.
of these people are also sitting deflated and waiting at this moment. And maybe
We
still
love
hopeful
it.
too. But
We
I'm
love
thinking
it.
a lot about them as well because it's been quite a 107, 200 days for them as well.
Or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it, cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just
Uh-oh,
be
here we
clear.
go.
And nothing
Look at all
that
the
was
white
true
people
yesterday
nodding.
about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not
Oh.
true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign.
Flawless.
Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every.
Nobody gives 2 shits about Queen Latifah. Nobody gave 2 shits about Beyonce. Nobody gave 2 shits about Oprah. But continue to go down this lane, continue to hire and pay these Hollywood hypocrites and see what happens, folks, because it doesn't move the needle, right? Did it move the needle with Taylor Swift? Hell no. In fact, it went in the other direction, according to polls.
Prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift, she had the Swifties, she had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true. And I think that the other piece I think is really important to say to people, because this is where it gets dicey, is that the fact that we now have to wait for more vote to come in, that is how the process works. There is an absentee ballot that needs to come in and that must be counted because those are also legitimate votes. This is where we get into that point where Donald Trump can do the thing Donald Trump does, which is to say, I like
Here
where
it
we
comes,
are right
folks.
now. And anything that changes that, because there is still a chance that the absentee ballot, that some, the remaining ballot could change what's happening now. And so we need to be really
More lies,
vigilant and
folks.
important in
More
telling
lies.
people and reminding people that until all the votes are counted and there's an actual call made, we don't have an outcome. And people going home at Howard, my concern would be that it feeds a disinformation, sort of doom loop that could be exploited by those who've been exploiting this campaign. We've had Russia, someone maybe
Oh, here comes Russia.
VPN or maybe in Russia calling in death threats. And those death threats were going, let's be clear, to minority, Black, and indigenous counties.
Bears repeating. We are counting all the votes and following the facts. We are not in a race to get the facts.
Just listen to Ari Melba Toast.
We will follow them, and they will come when they come. We are not in a prediction contest. We're not in a probability contest. We're not in a is your needle right contest. We are going to do that. So that's number one. And what we just saw from the Harris campaign looks like their expectation is more pessimistic than optimistic. We didn't see them bring out a real fire breather who's acting like, hey, give us a little more time. We got this. It wasn't a long speech. It didn't even, and Jen can speak to this as can everyone on the panel, it didn't sound like a battle plan of here's the next 36 hours. It sounded more pessimistic. And on the flip side, and I don't mean this as an insult to
A little more truthful is what they were being, rather than you guys here on the panel.
Donald Trump, although it is a negative observation. The only time he's quiet and talks about things being fair is if he thinks he's already won. When it's uncertain, he accuses everyone of cheating and undermines people's trust in this, which is unfortunate. And when he's losing, he's the loudest. And we all were at this table late night last cycle when we know in the end he lost, and he came out and did
He
that.
didn't
And
lose.
So I just
You
wanna
know what
observe,
happened
I'm
there.
sure many other people can add insights to this, that the Harris campaign sounds like that. And he is as quiet as we've seen him.
I think that's exactly what we're all.
We shall see. I think the Democrats were hoping they'd do so well they'd expand the map to Texas and Iowa, and they didn't win either of those either.
Idiot.
At this point, we've got 2 of the 7 swing states called. They are North Carolina and Georgia, both called for NBC News for Donald Trump. We're still watching the results come in all of the other swing states. We're heading toward a 1 a.m. closing in Alaska. That'll be our last poll closing of.
Now, if you take a look at what's happening right now, this is the map, right? They're still 92% in. Oh, we still can't call it for Pennsylvania. Okay, I can understand holding back on Arizona. 62% in, 6-point lead. 86% lead, 4-point lead. Nevada. But it's already should have been called. But you know what? They can't call it. They're not going to call it. It's just not going to happen, these guys, okay? They're too much into the tank for the Kamala Harris campaign. We all know that.
The night. Steve, as we're heading toward that, what are you watching?
Yeah, I'm watching Pennsylvania because now we've inched over 90% of the vote in, and Trump's margin now has moved over 200,000 votes in Pennsylvania. That's a 3.5 almost point advantage for Trump.
In the event that you would have another Trump term, you then have, you then have
ongoing returns in Pennsylvania. Steve, are we at 94% in Pennsylvania? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes, we are. It's 94%. Trump's lead here at 190,000 votes. That works out to about a 3 percentage point lead. It is a very significant hill for Kamala Harris to climb here. Just in terms of what's left, the picture is really kind of condensing and clarifying.
Our coverage of the presidential election. It is 1:52 a.m., which means we're obviously at our best. At this point, 2 of the 7 swing states have been called by NBC News. North Carolina and Georgia have both been projected as having been won by Republican candidate Donald Trump. Now, on the Democratic side, the campaign that had posted up at Howard University in Washington, D.C., the alma mater of Democratic candidate Kamala Harris, the co-chair of the campaign, Cedric Richmond, came out and told the assembled crowd there, as our correspondent told us, as Michelle Norris told us, the increasingly somber crowd there told them basically to go home, that Vice President Harris would not be making any remarks tonight. Solon Hilliard, thank you very much. I would be interrupting you if you had not just concluded your remarks, because NBC News has a projection to make.
So as you can see here, folks, Trump is, according to MSD and CMSD, LSD, the delusional network, right? 266. And yet, when you take a look at the projections and the trends of the other swing states, they were all going in Trump's direction, but they just couldn't do it. Waiting for probably another network or the AP or somebody else to call it, because they just can't press that button. Just can't do it. Hopium, trying to do the copium. And now it's all negativity. All the stuff that they were saying beforehand, it's all coming out again. The fomenting, the enmity, the hate, the verbal diarrhea, the racism, misogyny, patriarchy, all of that now from everybody is coming out. And now you can see where it's just going to begin to boil as to who should take the blame for this absolutely catastrophic loss. Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasser Shake Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasser. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, like, share, and follow us. Hit that notification bell for more updates. You've got 4 videos up here in front of you. Choose one of them. Choose them all. Take a look at our list on our video, on our YouTube page as well. I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.